I love tea. It makes my day. But don't worry, I made you one too. Today, I wanted to tell you a story. A story about who I really am. I immigrated here when I was just a tiny baby, 10 months old. And my mom worked really hard to get us to Canada. Not only that, she also worked really hard to get us to stay in Canada and immigrate here. She didn't have any education in terms of university degree or any type of degree, and she didn't speak any English. So she worked here as a waitress, doing 3 different jobs, day in and day out. And I remember one time vividly that I woke up in the middle of the night. I think I was 2.5 years old, and I got woken up because the grandma from upstairs, we were renting a basement suite, came down to check up on me and make sure that I was okay. And I just remembered how much I wished that it was my mom. But I knew that she worked really, really hard to give me the opportunity to be in Canada, to have a better life, and to have more opportunities and to see the world. And I spent the first 6 years of my life here in Canada. I had built my friend circles. I had really learned to live the life of a Canadian. And I learned the culture, I learned the food, and I thought to myself that this is it, this is my home. But then when I turned 6, my mom said to me, we're gonna go back to China. And I was crying and begging her. I was like, why? And she told me, I want you to learn more about your culture and your roots. And I remembered crying and begging her because at the time I didn't speak any Mandarin. I barely knew how to read and write Chinese. And I just thought to myself that I had just built my friend circle here and now I have to move back to China and start all over and go to a new country and not know how to speak the language or anything. So she didn't budge and we moved back to China. Growing up in China, Lunar New Year was my favorite time of the year because this is the first 3 weeks that I get off school and it's always filled with joy, laughter, excitement, love, and so much time spent with family. This is the only time that the entire country gets 3 weeks off out of the entire working year and everyone makes their way back to their hometown and spend it with their extended family. This is the most busy time of the year, but extremely joyful, loving, exciting, and warming. I remember my mom would put up Chinese decorations like moontip, and also she would buy all the Guangdong snacks for Chinese New Year, including things like mai tong gai dan san, no, gai dan gun, dan san, lin go, things like that. And I would just devour all of them because they're so yummy. And a lot of them are fried, and usually my mom doesn't let me eat fried food. Also, it was the only time of the year where I get to stay past midnight, and I would spend the whole night with my cousins watching the national TV show that they put on where there's live performances, usually for 3 days straight. And it was the only time of the year where my dad would come home for over a week. On Lunar New Year Day, we would also rent out a private room in a restaurant, and all 3 generations from my family would come together. There's over 25 of us, and we would just buy lean. And this is where we would have lunch together, catch each other up on all the highs and lows of the year, and celebrate love, joy, and happiness together. All the kids would also get rep pocket money from the married couples. And I remember I would always go home and count them and then put them under my pillow because my mom told me the money will grow if I put them under the pillow. Kind of like Tooth Fairy. But anyways, this year will actually be my first year spending Lunar New Year alone, and it breaks my heart because my grandparents had just moved back to China a few months ago for good because of my grandpa's deteriorating health, and this Lunar New Year he will actually be spending it in the ICU. And I know it's been really heavy and just daunting to me and my family. I don't remember the last time I slept through the night without worrying because I'm thousands of miles away, but this year, I wanted to share my tradition with you, and I also wanted to carry on this tradition for myself. So I went to Chinatown and I got some Chinese decorations like moontip and danglong and things like that, and I kind of decorated the outside of my door and my house, and I was really disappointed, to be honest, because I went to Chinatown and I went to some other malls and I just didn't feel that feeling of Chinese New Year and the happiness, the joyfulness, and I just felt empty. But that's a story for another time. I also called up my friends and my god sisters so that I could spend this holiday with them. Having to carry on this tradition for myself this year really made me realize what my mom must have felt like when she put up all the decorations and prepared all the red pocket money and also bought all the snacks for us. I realized the feeling that she must have felt when she did all those things for us and for herself and for our family. The feeling of warmth, connection, and proudness of being who you are. It made me feel so incredibly incredibly grateful for the 9 years that I got to spend in China and learning Chinese, writing Chinese, learning about all the culture, the food, the poetry, fully submerging myself in the experience and the culture in China, a place I also call home. And I remembered all the times where I felt like I wish I was in Canada, that I didn't have to be in China. But you know what's interesting is that we often don't appreciate things until we don't have them anymore. And this year is just like that for me. I realized that I am so proud to be Chinese Canadian, and I'm so happy that I got to experience both cultures at a very young age. And all those feelings of feeling like I was never home and that I didn't belong really shaped me as a person today. As I grew older, I really learned to appreciate who I am at my core, a Chinese Canadian. And I learned to love my culture, my roots, and celebrate who I really am and experience life with both cultures. So home is where your heart is. It's where you feel warm and where you feel like you belong and connected with other people. So this year, I wanted to celebrate Lunar New Year with you guys. And I'm so excited because we are launching a special limited edition Lucky Red CEO V3 collection tomorrow, January 22nd at 9 a.m. PST to celebrate Lunar New Year with you and to bring you a year of luck, joy, happiness, and love. Happy New Year! I wish you a full year of prosperity, abundance of love, joy, happiness, and health. And 新年快乐，祝你身体健康，万事如意。